You came here to babysit. In the center of what was called paradise, my younger sister Emily said that shamelessly. A beautiful suite room in Hawaii. From the floor to ceiling windows, I could see Diamond Head and the endless stretch of blue ocean. The champagne gold beach shimmered under the sunlight. I felt as though a knife of words, completely out of place in this atmosphere, had pierced straight into my heart. It was like all the air filled with expectation was instantly forced out of my lungs. Emily's husband, Jason, continued with a sneer that seemed to be his idea of a clever joke. Since you're single, this will be a good child-rearing experience, right? A practice run for the future. Well, though I'm not sure if that future will ever come. The last part was added in a deliberately hushed tone. Those words kicked up my pride, which had been quietly gathering dust in the corner of the room, without any regard. I see. So this was their version of heartfelt career advice for me, who had sparred with the wolves of Wall Street for 10 years. That kind of advice came from a man who acted like he was the winner in life just because he was a few years older than me. At their feet, 3 children were running around, shrieking with a mix of excitement and exhaustion from the long trip. The eldest, Ryan, was jumping on the sofa with his shoes on, and the impact sent the welcome pineapple rolling to the floor. With a dull thud, a small scratch appeared on the polished wooden floor. The twin daughters were fighting over the minibar snacks and scattering them across the floor, while one grabbed the TV remote with sticky chocolate-covered hands. The other waddled toward me, trying to stain my pure white linen suit with orange juice. I simply stood next to my suitcase, still stained with New York's melted snow, quietly steadying my breath. Only a third-rate person loses themselves in anger. It was in times of market crashes that being calm was necessary. The situation could be seen as a kind of a market crash in my life. A panic sell-off was the worst choice. Well then, I'm off. I have a scuba diving reservation. Ryan, turn the TV volume down. Emily said what she wanted to say and glanced irritably at the messy suite room. Oh my, what a disaster this is. Sorry, but could you clean this place up while we're out? It looks unsightly. She added that, then slipped on her beach sandals and pointed with her thumb at another door in the corner of the room. Oh, Hannah, your room with the kids is through the connecting door over there. I already had the luggage brought in. That way it'll be easier for you to look after them, right? Her words carried no consideration, only the tone of a businesslike notice. Silently, I opened that door. What came into view was a plain twin room, nothing like their suite. Outside the window was not a blue ocean, but a service yard lined with the hotel's massive air conditioning units. The low, roaring sound echoed constantly through the room. There was no welcome pineapple, only 2 withered apples placed on a small plate. Only my suitcase and a colorful bag stuffed with the children's toys had been carelessly left in the corner of the room. This was not a room for a family vacation. This was a staff waiting room. Emily and Jason did not even try to look me in the eye. The fact that I was there was seen as something as natural as the laws of the universe. Then they simply stepped out from the door of their suite. Oh, and one more thing, Jason added as if he had just remembered standing by the door. The kids' allergy list is stuck on the fridge in that room. Ryan only eats peanut butter sandwiches, so order some from room service. The sound of the door closing echoed the sound of something inside me snapping. What was left behind were my nieces and nephew, blood-related strangers, and a loneliness that felt like some kind of cruel joke. This farce, called a family vacation, had been planned only a few weeks ago. My name is Hannah, and I'm 35 years old. I had built a respectable position as a vice president in New York's financial industry. Every time my younger sister Emily got married, had children, and uploaded pictures of her happy family on social media, I was revising due diligence reports for M&A deals. There were days when all I could do was send back a thumbs-up sticker in reply to a message that said, "Look, Ryan stood up for the first time," with a video attached. It didn't even take me 3 seconds to send that reply, and immediately I was back on a conference call about multi-billion-dollar transactions. I had no regrets about my work. The success and independence I had seized with my own hands were my pride. Yet somewhere deep down, I would let out a small sigh at the brilliance of a life I had not chosen. That is why, to be honest, Emily's invitation made me happy. Hannah, let's all go to Hawaii as a family. You haven't taken a proper vacation in years. You need to take a break once in a while. Her voice on the other end of the line, bright like the sun, seemed to seep into my parched heart. I felt like a traveler lost in the desert who had just found an oasis. I applied for a long vacation I hadn't taken in years and started preparing for it. My team members looked at me with faces mixed with surprise and concern. Hannah taking a vacation? Is the earth spinning backward? They joked like that, but they willingly covered my work. It felt almost like a pilgrimage to reclaim something I had lost. I was foolish to take those words at face value. Why didn't I notice at JFK Airport that behind their smiling faces was as though they were saying, "Now we're free of the hassle"? Emily casually handed me a stack of plane tickets. The two with Emily and Jason's names printed were first class. The four with my name and the children's names were economy class. That stark difference already told the whole story of the journey to come. They handed me the economy tickets and the children, then hurried off into the first class lounge. I, soothing the fussy children, waited 6 hours on the hard chairs at the boarding gate, surrounded by the noise of economy class. And now, here I am in the downgraded room beside their luxurious suite, where only the roar of the air conditioning fills the air. This was the reality of my so-called family vacation. It seemed my trip to Hawaii had reached its destination before even taking off. No, in truth, there had never been a seat prepared for me at all. Even though I hadn't paid for this trip, I received this unbelievable treatment. I was nothing more than a convenient stage prop for them to shine in their vacation performance. As for my sister and her husband, they had already rushed off saying, "Well then, we're off to our scuba diving reservation." This was the reason I had been brought here. When my sister said, "Since you've helped us so much, we'll cover the cost of this trip," I should have known something was wrong. But buried in my work day after day, I allowed myself to be swayed by those sweet words. From the large window of the suite, the perfect blue sky stretched out. Gazing at that breathtakingly beautiful view, I quietly made a decision. There was no need to obediently keep playing the role a scriptwriter had assigned me. I lay on the sofa staring at the ceiling for a while, but strangely, no tears came. It seems that when anger passes, a person becomes calm. Instead, past memories resurfaced one after another, vividly, as if they had happened just yesterday. It was when Emily was a senior in college. She called my office, sobbing uncontrollably. "Hannah, what should I do? I can't pay my tuition fees. If this continues, I'll be forced to drop out." At the time, I was desperately saving money for a down payment to buy a small apartment in Manhattan. I woke up at 5 a.m. every morning and worked until 2 a.m., eating most of my meals at my desk. At the end of it, I dreamed of having my own modest castle with a view of the East River. My only joy was imagining, with my exhausted mind, what kind of paintings I would hang on the walls or what dishes I would line up in the kitchen. That night, I cut my work short and visited Emily's apartment. Her eyes were swollen red, and on the table lay a stack of overdue notices. In the room, there was a designer brand bag clearly just purchased, displayed as if to flaunt it. The shine of the smooth leather burned into my retinas. In my head, I instantly calculated the approximate price of that bag against the shortfall in tuition Emily was crying about. The answer was all too obvious. Before anger, a deep, bottomless fatigue overwhelmed me. Again, I thought, the same as always. If I confronted her here, I would only get tearful excuses in return. And in the end, I would have to take care of it. That reality weighed on my shoulders like a heavy anchor. "I'm sorry, Hannah. The scholarship wasn't enough, and I ended up using some of my part-time earnings." I said nothing and sat down beside her. The next day, I went to the bank, withdrew almost all the money from my savings account, and transferred it to Emily's university account. I remember the bank teller giving me a puzzled look. "Are you sure about this?" they asked, as if to confirm. I simply nodded quietly. "Thank you, Hannah. I'll never forget this favor for the rest of my life. When you buy your house, I'll help you with everything I have." Emily said that and hugged me tightly. I believed those words, until 2 weeks later, when I saw her posting pictures of a trip to Europe on social media. When Emily's first son, Ryan, was born, her postpartum recovery was poor, and she had become mentally unstable. So I canceled going to an important international conference and rushed to the airport. That conference should have been a major opportunity for my career. For weeks, I stayed with her, soothing the screaming baby who cried every 2 hours through the night, changing diapers and making formula. One night, Ryan developed a fever close to 104 degrees and would not stop crying. Panicking, I called the pediatric emergency hotline and kept wiping his body with a wet towel. Emily and Jason were sleeping peacefully with earplugs in the next room. Even when I knocked on the door, there was no response. At dawn, as I dozed off on the living room sofa holding Ryan, whose fever had finally begun to drop, Emily woke up and said something I would never forget for the rest of my life. "Sorry, Hannah. Could you go buy some more milk stock? I have a headache from lack of sleep." She seemed completely unaware that I had not slept a single minute. I had brushed all of that aside with the phrase, "because we're family." I had never once thought about receiving something in return. All I ever wanted was just a little gratitude and respect. But somewhere along the way, they had mistaken my goodwill as their entitled right. Bringing my thoughts back to the present, I picked up my smartphone and began arranging a few things. First, I called the top-class babysitting service partnered with this hotel. I put the negotiation skills I had honed on Wall Street to a good use. "Yes, I'd like to request an urgent arrangement. Could you provide 3 experienced, fully certified childcare professionals for 3 days starting today, available around the clock?" The operator seemed a little surprised by my calm tone and overly specific request. "Yes, for 3 children, correct? Any allergies? Understood. We will arrange the best team that can handle meals, bathing, and activities all within the next hour. The fee will be at a premium rate. Will that be acceptable?" "Yes, that will be no problem at all." The 3-day fee took up a considerable portion of my bonus from last month, but that was not an issue. This was like an insurance policy to protect my dignity. This was not a cost, but an investment. Next, I booked a first-class seat on a flight back to New York at night. There was no way I was going to endure 6 hours in a cramped economy middle seat, wallowing in misery. Finally, I asked the hotel desk to leave a note for them. I requested high-quality stationery and an envelope with the hotel's logo. "Dear Emily and Jason, I present you with the vacation without children you've always dreamed of. The finest professionals will responsibly take care of your treasures. The fee is my modest gift. Please, enjoy yourselves to the fullest. I will be returning ahead of you to the battlefield called reality." I had wanted, just for a moment, to see the look on their faces when they read that note. Perhaps at first confusion, then anger, and finally, panic. As promised, the top team I had arranged knocked on the connecting door within minutes. The experienced babysitters only needed a glance at the trash suite to immediately begin building rapport with the children. I nodded quietly at their professional manner. I slipped out of the hotel unnoticed and climbed into a taxi bound for the airport. A few minutes after sinking deep into the seat, I pulled out my smartphone as if remembering something. Sure enough, there was a missed call from Emily, who apparently had just returned from diving. Message notifications were also popping up. "Hannah, where did you go? Who is this person? What is going on?" Without opening it, I pressed and held the power button without hesitation. The screen blacked out, and I felt a strange relief as if I had been cut off from the world. The storm that would surely start from then would be shut out until I landed in New York. "Did you enjoy paradise enough? You don't look very sunburned, though." The driver chatted amiably over the rearview mirror. I returned a vague smile. Not really. I didn't have much time to enjoy it. I had a little errand to run. "That's a shame. It's Hawaii, after all. But hey, these things happen." The driver shrugged. "Anyway, good things will happen from here on out." With that, he ended the conversation, and I turned my gaze back to the view of the so-called paradise outside, which had nothing to do with me. When I arrived at the airport and stepped out of the taxi, the driver called after me. "Ma'am, you've got the look of someone about to accomplish something big. Good luck." He flashed a broad smile and gave a thumbs up. I appreciated his kind gesture and headed into the terminal. I downed a single glass of champagne in the lounge and boarded with priority boarding. I sank into the spacious seat and wiped my hands with a warm towel. A flight attendant called my name and greeted me politely. I was finally being treated with respect as a person. When the plane cleared the clouds, I finally felt like I could breathe. The sea of clouds below spread out as if to wash my heart clean. Back at my apartment in New York, I powered on my phone, and as expected, the storm had arrived. Dozens of missed calls and messages. A torrent of abusive language from Emily and Jason. "Unbelievable. You are a demon. You put our children in danger. Who are these babysitters? Is this some kind of spite? Your obnoxious gift is mocking us. Why aren't you answering the phone? If anything has happened, it's your fault. You ruined our vacation. We'll sue you. They unleashed every insult in their vocabulary to berate me. A little later, messages from my parents arrived as well. From my mother, Emily has broken down in tears. How could you do something so cruel? We are family and we should be helping each other. Apologize right now. It was the usual sermon. From my father, I am disappointed in you. You are no longer one of us. It was a short sentence like a knife. Then came messages from my aunt and cousins. Emily was crying. You two used to be so close when you were little. What happened? They had already built a perfect information network, preparing to condemn me as the villain who had destroyed family harmony. I read each of those messages as if I were observing an intriguing research subject. Not a single one of their words asked for the reason behind my actions. It was never, why did you do such a thing? But always, how could you do something so cruel? There was not a single word that tried to understand my feelings or circumstances. There were only one-sided accusations against me for not acting according to their expectations. Come to think of it, it had always been that way. Within the team called family, I was always the one to take on the dirty work, the convenient substitute player. It was always me who roasted the Thanksgiving turkey and washed the mountain of dishes. It was me who researched, purchased, and wrapped all the Christmas presents for everyone. And a substitute player had no right to voice opinions. They were only expected to quietly fulfill their role whenever called onto the field. Without replying to any of the messages, I set down my smartphone. I could easily predict their next move. They would come directly here. I began to prepare myself for that day. A week later, the intercom rang so violently it seemed about to break. On the monitor appeared the stern faces of my parents, Emily and Jason. I quietly opened the door. What on earth were you thinking? How dare you ruin our vacation like that? Emily's shrill voice echoed through the quiet hallway of my apartment. I frowned and pressed my index finger to my lips to silence her. Lower your voice, Emily. Don't shout. You'll disturb the neighbors. I said it coldly, then reluctantly opened the door a little wider. If you have something to say, I'll hear it inside. Come in. When I led them into the living room, I didn't offer them the sofa. Instead, I stood with my arms crossed, facing them. Then, calmly, I began. As for that line you just used, I'll return it to you as it is, Emily. The one who wants to ask, what on earth were you thinking, is me. My composed demeanor made them falter for a moment. Jason stepped forward, pointing at me and shouting, What do you think family is supposed to mean to you? A wonderful question, Jason. I was just pondering the same thing myself. I slowly looked around the living room. Does family mean a convenient source of free labor, or is it an excuse that allows you to trample on someone else's goodwill and time just for your own vacation? With all the money you make on Wall Street, couldn't you do a little family service? Ah, that again. The money I make is earned through effort that nearly bleeds me dry. I am not an ATM that automatically spits out cash for your luxurious holidays. What did you say? Jason's voice rose with menace. His face flushed red with anger. Beside him, my mother cut in with a voice on the verge of tears. Hannah, we only wanted you to know the joy of being with children. We thought maybe you were lonely, always working so much. Thank you, Mother. But why did you try to force that so-called joy on me without asking? If you truly cared about me, shouldn't you have first asked, Hannah, could you watch the kids for a few days in Hawaii? And on top of that, of course you should have discussed compensation for babysitting. Don't tell me you've forgotten how much of my time and money I've spent for you all up until now. Why is it that you can't show me even the minimum respect I deserve? At my quiet question, my mother only bit her lip and cast her eyes down. It was my father who broke the silence. You're the older daughter. It's only natural that you take care of your younger sister. At that outdated value, I couldn't help but let out a dry laugh. Father, that's wrong. This is no longer the 20th century. Before I am an older sister, I am Hannah, an individual human being. My life does not exist for the convenience of my sister. Don't use the word family like some convenient spell. It should not be a chain meant to bind me. And Father, have you already forgotten who paid for the roof repairs? Do you remember what you said at that time? You're truly reliable. But what you really meant was, you're truly convenient, wasn't it? My father choked on his words, looking away with discomfort. I calmly observed the moment the mask of his authority slipped away. Emily, with a trembling voice, reached for her last weapon. Enough! Someone as selfish and cold as you. I'll never think of you as my sister again. What a coincidence. I smiled quietly and replied, I was just about to resign from the position of your convenient sister. At my unexpected counterattack, Emily was struck speechless. I slowly stood up and pointed toward the door. This conversation is over. The convenient sister you wanted no longer exists here. Please leave. It was my first clear and unwavering refusal. It was as if the air had been sucked out of the room, and for a moment they were struck speechless. My father, his face stiffened with anger and shame, was the first to turn his back. My mother looked between Emily and me, her face twisted in helpless anguish. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but in the end, no words came out. Jason, his face red with impotent rage, only glared at me before following after them. Only Emily stood frozen for a moment. Her lips parted slightly, as if to unleash more accusations, but no sound emerged. Perhaps overwhelmed by my defiance, the four of them left my apartment without another word. It felt as though I had finally shed the heavy armor I had carried for so many years. After a while, I rose unsteadily to my feet and walked toward the sideboard in the living room. There was a family photograph taken a few years ago displayed there. One from after Thanksgiving dinner with everyone laughing together. I picked up the picture frame and stared at it. In the photo, I wore a slightly tired expression, yet I was smiling as if happy. Now I could clearly see that smile had been forced. I turned the frame over and quietly placed it at the very back of the drawer. It wasn't about discarding the past. It was only about returning it to its rightful place. Months have passed since then. My life is astonishingly peaceful. Weekends are spent solely for myself, never canceled at the last minute for someone else's convenience. Before, I had thrown myself into work as if to escape. But now I truly enjoy my career. And then I finally booked a plane ticket to Italy, a trip I had wanted to take for a long time. I plan to tour the museums of Florence and visit wineries in the Tuscan countryside. It will be a solo trip. I won't have to fit anyone else's schedule. Just as I picked up my phone to practice the Italian phrases I had recently learned on an app, the screen quietly lit up. It was a message from my mother. There had been no contact since that incident. It contained only one short line, "Are you doing well?" Had I been my former self, that brief sentence would have filled me with guilt, and I would have hurriedly replied. But now I simply stared at the words in silence. I gently turned my smartphone face down and placed it on the table. Whether to reply or not, when and what words to send back. All of that is for me to decide. There is no need to rush. Because they are the closest people to me, we must respect one another as independent individuals and never forget gratitude. I broke that chain with my own hands. And for the first time in my life, I have begun to walk my own life undisturbed by anyone. The sky over New York is wide and endlessly blue today as well. Under this sky, I will continue to weave a story that belongs only to me.